It just turned the
Charge
electric.
the battery every once in a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I thought we'd get started with introduction, certainly, but if you've got anything that you'd like to tell us about either grants or service offerings or collaborations that you're doing, we'd love to hear about that. And I'm just going to start us going through that with the, well, since Cherish was talking, let's start with Cherish.
So hi, everyone. I'm Cherish Cronmiller. I'm the Executive Director of OLICAP, your community action agency for Jefferson and Clallam counties. Waiting on a number of things to come down the pike right now. There's a lot of legislation going on. If you're interested in receiving on Sunday nights, Monday mornings, I send out some information on various legislation that's going to be discussed in the coming week. And you can sign on as pro or con. Everything I'm going to send you is stuff that we're recommending that you sign on as pro to. Lots of bills in the pipeline right now, regarding what kind of help is there going to be when the eviction moratorium ends, things like that. So it's a rough time for some folks out there. And I know some of our lawmakers are scrambling. So, but I'm happy to share that information. And, with any of you, if you hear stuff, going on or you have questions, please don't hesitate to give me a call or send me an email. I'm always happy to share, what's going on and what I know. So don't hesitate to do that. And I just hope everyone stays nice and warm this weekend.
Thank you. How about Brian Richardson? Welcome, Brian. It's good to see you.
Hi, thank you. Good to be here. Good to see everybody. So let's see, at the Recovery Cafe, actually just this morning, we started our 5th new recovery circle, and it's a co-ed circle. So we have 2 population specific, 1 for men, 1 for women, and then 3 co-ed circles. I think that brings us to I forget, somewhere between 35 and 40 members. And what that means is that that's someone who is attending a recovery circle every week. Right now, those are all virtual, but all of our staff has now gotten the vaccine. So what we've been talking about is having some of those go back to hybrid circles, which we did for a little bit back in November before the restrictions tightened up again with COVID. So we're excited about that. We've been doing outreach out at the fairgrounds, like Cherish was talking about, so with OLICAP and St. Vince, and working hopefully more closely with DBH out there as well. This week we had a meeting with a representative from the Healthcare Authority about some funding through SAMHSA. That it's sounds like really up in the air, so I don't know if I want to say too much here, but we're hoping that we'll get some funding there that'll be really flexible for like direct client financial assistance, things like helping people with transportation to treatment facilities outside of the community, helping them get reestablished back here in the community with housing, things like that. So we're excited about that. I think that's pretty much all I got. Good to see everyone.
You too. Hey, John, could I have you take over getting everyone through introductions? I've got a couple of people who are having trouble with their Zoom link. I'm going to focus
Sure. Before we go on, I want to just congratulate Brian, because I got to meet his twins in the parking lot at the hospital the other day, and they are lovely young boy and girl. So congratulations to you for that.
Thank you. Everybody's healthy.
Congratulations.
We're good. Appreciate it.
Let's go to Matt Reddy next.
Hi, I'm Matt Reddy. I'm one of the Jefferson Healthcare Hospital Commissioners. Good to see everyone. And yeah, that's all I got to say for right now. Great to see you.
All right. Gabby?
Gabby Caudell, I'm the clinical supervisor, I believe in recovery, and president of Gateway to Freedom. And I think we finally got the jail contract figured out, so we'll be starting next week.
Awesome. Jolene?
Good afternoon, Jolene Crone, Salish Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization.
business as usual, working on crisis system stuff. A lot of legislative information coming down that may affect crisis services this round. So we're keeping an eye on that.
Vicki?
Thank you. Vicki Kirkpatrick, Jefferson County Public Health. And we're still working on COVID, both the testing side with case investigation and contact tracing, as well as the collaborating with Jefferson Healthcare around vaccine administration. So that continues. We also have a collaborative statewide that I've been involved in quite a bit lately in relationship to both vaccine allocation and distribution, as well as a legislative proposal that would regionalize all of the local public health jurisdictions. So that is being worked on pretty fervently from a variety of organizations, which is much appreciated. So I guess that kind of describes some of the things I've been working on lately.
Thanks, Vicki. Denise?
Hi, Denise Banker. I work at Jefferson County Public Health as the Community Prevention and Wellness Initiative Coordinator, and I run a coalition called the Empowered Teens Coalition in Chimacum. We have Guiding Good Choices family workshop coming up on all 5 Tuesdays in March and all 5 Thursdays in April from 6 to 8. Those will be virtual. I think I've sent out a lot of flyers already to many of you, if not all of you. We recently had a policy passed in the Chimacum School District where they will have naloxone on hand in the school district should the need arise. And we are hosting a drug take back in April on the 24th with Chuck Paulson at the QFC in Hadlock. And we belong to the Prevention Voices group, which is a legislative education group that interacts with the legislature regarding ease of access to substances around the state due to the temporary allowances at the Liquor Cannabis Board for business purposes since COVID has arisen. And so we interact with the legislature in that way in educating about what ease of access means in terms of community norms and how kids interpret that. Thanks.
Greg?
Yeah, Greg Brotherton, County Commissioner. Happy to be here. I've interfaced with a lot of the different groups that are represented here, and I don't get on the ground too much myself, but always interested in what's going on. And I did want to warn Cherish that I wrote a song last night about the fairgrounds. So that's all.
Maybe if we have time at the end, you can perform it for us, Greg.
It's not quite ready. I will soon.
All right. Adam?
Okay, I'm Adam over at Jefferson Healthcare Population Health. Mostly working between vaccine, helping out workflow with some vaccine stuff. But other than that, setting up some workflows to more quickly map equity data to some of our different populations within our equality metrics and things like that, so we can start really looking at any disparities among other subgroups like fall prevention and things like that. A lot of cool stuff coming up.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah.
Chief Server?
I know we're spending quite a bit more time over at the fairground, mostly for mediation, kind of showing our presence out there. I know I start my morning out at the fairgrounds and just kind of checking everything going on out there. We have one gentleman who's kind of occupying our officer's time right now. It seems that maybe he's compensating, and so we're spending a lot of time with him. I spent 20 minutes with him on the phone today. But I was happy to hear one of our officers yesterday met up with a homeless gentleman over QFC, ended up buying him a pair of shoes. I gave him a beanie jacket or beanie hat and a blanket and some hand warmers and whatnot because it was getting cold, and that worked out well. He was a little intoxicated, but he was able to care for himself, but he kind of moved on eventually. And that's kind of what's going on with us right now.
Lisa?
Hi, can you hear me? I had
Yes.
to do a phone and computer thing today. So, hi, this is Lisa. I'm with Health Facilities Planning and Development, and we support the consortium with some data work, and I'm glad to be here. Excited for snow, actually.
Thanks. Nat?
Hey everybody, Nat Jacob here with the Public Defender's Office. Not sure what the prompt was at the beginning because I missed the first minute or so. So is this like what we're up to today type of thing?
Yeah, kind of a brief overview of what's going on. Yep.
Well, I've been doing a lot of advocacy work for SB 5226. Write that down. It's the bill to end debt-based driver suspensions in Washington. It's going to have a huge impact on our client community and all the people that we serve if it passes. It's currently sitting in the Law and Justice Committee. We're trying to get it out of there, which will happen Monday, fingers crossed. But once that happens, it'll go over to Transportation or Ways and Means. And then if it passes through there, it'll hit the floor, and we're hopeful that it'll pass. I've been working with another consortium on that effort for over a year, and we're really optimistic about our chances. So that would instantaneously impact the lives of over 100,000 Washingtonians who have their license suspended because of court fines and just basically being poor, which is always a good reason to put people in jail and suspend their privileges, is when they're poor. So that'll be fun.
Thanks, Nat.
Everyone.
Anna?
Hi, Anna McHenry, Behavioral Health DD Coordinator, working for the county out of Public Health. On the Behavioral Health Advisory Committee side, we have all the contracts in place, or they're over in at the courthouse, I should say, all 14 of them, and those MOUs for each of the vendors that receive 1/10 funding. I'm going to be meeting with each of the vendors with Amanda Temslin, the Kitsap County epidemiologist, to go over their data and to see what other questions or areas they would like to cover over the next 2 years. So we also had a mental health field response team meeting where we heard from Barb Carr about the new 1/10 funded program called Therapeutic Support for Independent Living.
Amy is going to extend it for another week for you.
Oh.
And she also wanted to let you know that you could have someone else.
An
Good.
echo?
It sounds like Gabby's. It sounds like
Oh,
Gabby.
Gabby. Oh, okay. Anyway, sorry. And we also heard from Jim Novelli about his new old DBH wraparound case manager that's also funded with 1/10 funding, Medicaid versus Medicare by Jolene Crone gave us an update on that. And then we heard about the WASPIC grant for the navigator position with the Sheriff's Office. We heard an update on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Jim?
It's Jim Novelli, Discovery Behavioral Healthcare. There's a lot going on. I've been on a meeting all day. I'm the board member of the Washington Council for Behavioral Health, and so which is great because I get to be able to speak with all of my colleagues across the state and see what's going on. And there is a lot going on in the legislature right now. There's quite a bit of bills for mental health services, behavioral health services, SUD services. Seems like the legislature is really seeing this as an important part of state funding. So there are a lot of bills, plus there's some national bills that I mentioned the other day at a meeting is House Bill 432. That's not in committee yet in Congress, but this is one that would allow, and this is could be a really big difference, that would allow for Medicare for licensed clinical counselors, licensed managers, and family therapists to bill Medicare, which they can't do right now because it has to only be a licensed clinical social worker. This would open up the field wide to more access to services. So if you get on govtrack.com, you can find House Bill 432, and you can actually comment and give your support for it. This is not the first time we've tried to get this through. It's really had a hard time making it through Congress because, unfortunately, no disrespect to any social workers that might be on the line, but the NSAW really has a strong lobby and really pushes back against it for reasons I'll never understand. But anyhow, so really a lot of legislative stuff going on right now and reaching out, and there's a lot of different bills in the state right now that are really beneficial. One of the big projects that we're all working on is the 988 number, which hopefully is the national suicide prevention line, and how we're going to put that in place in this state, because we already have quite a few different suicide prevention lines and how to coordinate all that. So that's something that's working there right now. And then I obviously sent an email to Cherish not too long ago. I was on a couple emails with Brian Richardson today. We're going to be sending a case manager down to the fairgrounds a couple hours a week to at least do some outreach for people that maybe don't have access to services and try to get them hooked up if possible, if they're willing to get into services. So hopefully get that project started next week. And then on top of that, our MAT program is moving forward. Had some good meetings with HCA, got some of the coding things figured out, and Ford and I are just anxious. You can see how anxious Ford looks. We're very anxious to get this off the ground and get started working together to make sure we can bring more MAT services into the community. Obviously, he would provide the therapy and counseling, and I would do the prescribing. So we're really excited about this whole process. So just a few little things that we're up to. So
thanks, Jim.
Okay.
Judd?
Hi, thanks, Judd, navigator with the Port Townsend Police Department. I can be pretty brief. I think as Chief Serber mentioned, there's been a recent spike with some individuals who absorb a lot of time and energy. So that's where I think a lot of the focus has been. And yeah, other than that, I'm just happy to hear about just more ongoing outreach. A new individual that came from Clallam County, a lot of contacts with him, but he has expressed some willingness recently to engage in services. So it's when that window opens, sometimes it's brief. So I think he'll be engaging in services today and tomorrow, hopefully, and hopefully kind of address some of his concerns. But other than that, yeah, pretty much usual.
Thanks. Ford? You there, Ford? All right, maybe while he's figuring that out, Lisa Ray, do you want to go?
Hi there, everybody. First of all, congratulations, Brian. I didn't know you were expecting twins. That's so awesome. And thank all of you for everything that you're doing. Lisa Ray Thomas. I'm with the University of Washington Alcohol and Drug Abuse Institute, and also with the American Indian Health Commission of Washington State. And I wanted to let you know that we are hosting, ADI is hosting a webinar, half-day webinar, February 26th, for working with people who are receiving medications for opioid use disorder and also using methamphetamine and other stimulants. I'll put the link to register in the chat box for you all. And that's it for now. Thank you.
Great. Ford, I'll give you one more chance. It looks like maybe you're off mute.
Yeah, I am. I'm sorry I was late. I just got out of the hospital a while ago. I've been in there since yesterday. So I might be a little disoriented and my thinking might be a little off. But I don't really know what I'm supposed to be talking about right now. Because
it's all good. We're just glad to see you here, Ford.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I know that Jim talked a little bit about us working together. I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to be doing some stuff with him down at the fairgrounds also. And we're going to see if we can cover some of the bases that have been maybe having more difficulty getting connected to normal. I know we did, I don't know if she showed pictures, if Lori showed the pictures of graduation from this morning or from last week or not.
I think she's going
to. We did have
to.
a couple of people graduate from drug court.
Yeah, I think she's going to show those in a minute.
Yeah, the interesting part is one of them is a new mother and the other one is about to be a new mother. And so both of them were in drug court. They successfully completed. They did a great job. During their course of treatment, they had some bumps in the beginning and then were able to move ahead and become successful at graduating and starting developing a family at the same time. So are you going to show that, Lori?
Yes, I'll put those up. We'll go to that as soon as we finish sort of running around the table here or the Zoom.
Okay. Well, I'll quit then.
Thanks, Ford. Jen?
All right.
Yeah, hi, sorry, I actually share an office with somebody, so I don't know if you can hear me. Jennifer Wharton with Jefferson Healthcare, and much like Vicki, very much focused on vaccine delivery. And we at the hospital have been working on trying to make sure we pull forward our minority population within our county, and making sure with what vaccine we do have, which is minimal at the time, that we have equitable distribution. From a behavioral health standpoint, this is our last month with our year-long program with the University of Washington for the AIMS program, which is an integrated behavioral health program within primary care, utilizing our primary care providers, our psychiatric providers, as well as our licensed clinical social workers. So what Jim was talking about with that bill would be very helpful because they are very difficult to recruit. To be able to allow to bill for services to Medicare would be great. So finalizing up that, and I wanted to say I also work with Adam, and I think Adam undersold himself because he is our data extraordinaire here from a quality equity perspective, and he even helps us with the data with our AIMS program, ensuring that our interventions and our treat to target, that we're showing clinical improvement and actually reduced ED utilization. So without that data that Adam provides, we're flying blindly sometimes. So that's all I have to report for now. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Jen. Apple?
I'm out hiding here. Hello, everybody. I'm Apple Martin. I'm a nurse. I'm community health director at Jefferson County Public Health. And I got a lot going on. Nice to see you all. I'm getting to know you all very well. I just give you a few updates on how what I do with my staff focuses on families, which is the crux of what we have our lens adjusted to. Obviously, as Vicki said and Jen said, we are highly involved in dealing with the pandemic, and that means, at least in our wheelhouse, that we have 7 days a week case investigation, contact tracing going, and we have a really strong, a small but mighty and strong team of folks who cover those many details off and on throughout 7 days a week. And it's a nonstop process, and we'll be doing it for a long time, I have a feeling. So we have some expertise in that, and it just keeps rolling forward. It's a lot of work. In addition, I'm part and parcel of the recruited effort to try to flow volunteers through Department of Emergency Management and recruit this sort of next phase of availability of vaccine when it's available to our community through what we call POD events, point of delivery events. And we are working in synergy with obviously Jefferson Healthcare and with DEM and here at Public Health. Right now we're masterminding how we're going to deploy that out into the community eventually in some more mass vaccination scenarios once the faucet turns on for vaccine, we'll keep our fingers crossed and keep plugging away and advocating for all people to have access through these different phases. In other news, I do have another job. We have a brand new practitioner in our clinic. We've been recruiting for 13 months. And so we have a new practitioner in our sexual and reproductive health clinic here on site, as well as our 3 school-based health centers. We are newly open at Quilcene School with a 3rd school-based health center. It's been a bit of a light opening, I have to say, in this first semester of school starting last September. Now that we have a 2nd provider who can be down there at regular intervals, we'll be able to go full force. And we've got a space, it's set up, and we're mobilizing. We're filling it with furniture and pharmacy items. So we'll have great services offered to youth down in South County through that school-based health center. Our syringe exchange program continues to go on. We continue to have folks coming in the building and doing their exchanges and getting wraparound services through our nurses to various resources in the community, MAT treatments, other treatment facilities and things like that. So that's ongoing and really has been at a steady state through the pandemic. So we're proud of that work. I do a lot of work with Chip, with Lori and John in other ways. That continues. We're doing a lot of diversity and equity and inclusion work here in our agency and trying to make that have its own space here so that we can have those discussions about the work we do and how we provide what we provide to the people who come to us for services. We've had some changes in vital records. Birth and death certificates are a little bit more challenging to obtain. The state has some privacy rules now that are enforced so that identity can't be stolen. So the price of applications for either of those certificates have gone up, and also the level of identification required for folks to come in and obtain a birth certificate, say, are much more rigorous. So you have to check our website out and come prepared. And that's for everybody to know. Yeah, I think a lot of what else I'm doing is sort of answering people's questions about COVID, and that how that relates to this group of folks is I get calls from folks wanting to know how to do COVID safe procedures or having people in their warming centers, or say there's an event that needs to happen down at the fairgrounds that includes dental work for homeless folks or haircuts or what have you. That's people orchestrating that will come to us. So we're doing a lot of brokering and guidance, directing to folks about that type of thing. I do just as much about that with schools as well. With our in-person blended learning model, it takes a lot of forethought to make that safe and effective. We want our kids to be as much together and in school as they can, because the results of this last year, and kids being out of school and disrupted in the way they have been is having really fatal consequences for our youth. And it's a big deal to us. And I think I'll stop there.
Thanks, Apple. Peggy, I think you're the last one.
Sorry, I'm just a liaison from the Affordable Housing Task Force and those kinds of activities. So
great. I don't think we intended to spend a half an hour on this, but I'm actually really glad that we did. I think everybody being connected is a really important part of this work, and I for one would just, those people who are out on the streets, dealing with homeless or disadvantaged people in our community, I just admire the work that you're doing so much. And I think we're all so grateful that you're out there providing services to our community in whatever capacity you do. So really grateful for that. And with that, I think we're going to kind of whiz through the rest of the meeting, so we try to get you out of here on time.
Can folks see the agenda now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we're going to whiz through a couple of things here. First, I wanted to highlight that we'll be collecting our data again for a quarterly report that will be due from all the regular players by March 15th, and we'll send out an email just highlighting that. You might see the same slide again at the end of the presentation. And then Ford, did you want to say anything more about our two therapeutic drug court graduates?
Yeah, both of these graduates, one came from Safe Harbor, one came from Believe in Recovery. Both of them put a lot of work, as you can see with our new mom there. And she's doing very well. And they've worked really hard to get to where they are today. And I look forward to their future growth in their recovery and in the community. There were other things I wanted to say, but they've kind of slipped my mind because of where I've been the last couple of days. So I apologize for that. But I will definitely come back to it at a later date.
Great. Thank you, Ford, and we're glad you're here. And then John, I'm going to put it back over to you.
Yeah, so Lori and I have been having some discussion about how we might kind of we really want to use this group to chart the course of what we're doing in terms of mental health in this community. So we would really like to check with you. You know, Lori and I are really feeling like this group is particularly well positioned to be kind of the big picture steward for what we do in terms of behavioral health in our community. And I think our thought is that one of the goals that we're trying to achieve is to develop a community-wide behavioral health plan that you know, helps break down some of the silos that are occurring in our community, and as much as we can have agencies collaborating and cooperating and trying to fill in some of those gaps that occur in our community. So I think I'm going to kind of shut up now, but I guess what we would like to hear from some of you is, does our vision, this vision of the BHC as being the convener that puts all the pieces together and allows us to have a community-wide behavioral health plan, do you agree with that vision, and are you feeling supportive of us moving ahead with that? So I'm gonna, you know, let's start. Anybody that wants to comment, and if nobody does, I'll call on some folks to comment. So anybody want to comment on that vision?
This is Jim, so I can jump in. And what I'd like to start off with, you know, I've been doing behavioral health or mental health for 25 years. Started in Illinois, moved to Montana, then over to Washington. And I will have to say, this is the first place I've been in all those years that I've seen this kind of organization that you have formed here, this BHC, that brings people together like this. I wish in my past we had some of this. And I started way back in 2008 in the early days of doing integration in Illinois, and what a struggle that was. But now to see people coming together at a meeting like this is so valuable, to share ideas and to share really what's good for the community, to help the community, to get the community's impact and get the community together. And I think the role of the BHC here, the consortium, is so important, to share ideas and to work together and to strategize together. Because without a strategic plan, you really can't move forward. And this is really evident because this was a big discussion today on the state call, because the state really lacks a strategic plan for behavioral health. It's fragmented. You got DSHS, you got HCA, you got DHBR, all these people trying to, and the governor's office, all with these different ideas of how behavioral health, mental health, whatever term you want to use, moving forward. I think you have an opportunity here with the BHAC to organize this in a way that this becomes the really the strategic planner, really the goals. What's the goals for this community 1 year from now, 2 years, 5 years, and to really set this out. And instead of working against each other and fragmenting things, how do we join together with the resources? Because we got limited resources in the peninsula. You know, hiring staff, finding staff is very difficult. So if we work together, we can maybe share some of those things and build a better, stronger monster, if you want to call it. I don't know, but I really, really feel positive about the BHAC. And I have seen, and just from my outside coming in, my 1 year anniversary comes up in a week. So, and, you know, being here a year, I have seen some fragmentation because there's similar meetings discussing the same thing. And it seems like this should be all under one roof to me. How do we really work this out so we can really all communicate together instead of having these divergent, going after different grants and everything? How do we put that together? How do we all work together in unison? And I think the BHAC, this consortium, makes sense to me. And I that's my vote for you guys. I think you've done a wonderful job pulling this together, and it's great to have this much community representation come to the table and discuss the issues that are in front of us and be able, because if you look, it's usually number 1, 2, or 3 on the list: substance abuse disorder, mental health issues. This is what's important to the community. And this is a place where the community can maybe be heard and get some of those things solved. Just my
Thanks,
2
Jim.
So.
Someone else?
I don't know how to follow up on that. I love you, man. Yeah, I would echo what Jim says, and I'm not sure how that could all work, but much better when we all work together than against, not necessarily against each other on purpose, but just kind of know what direction we're going and what we need. So I think it's, I don't know if you're asking if it's a value or if that should be the way that it should be used, but I would agree. Yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner Brotherton.
I think this is a really important conversation. I think that having a strategy with all of the players here is really important. I'm not sure if, it's a coming together, and I mean, even, the introductions were really helpful just in kind of giving context and how the different organizations are moving through this world. It's this is a conversation I don't think we're going to resolve right now, but I'd love to have this, the commissioners, at least for the county departments and organizations and funded organizations. I'd love to have this conversation with the other commissioners. I think that this is a strong consortium, and I think it definitely has an important role in the de-siloing, as John said, of some of our efforts to make sure we're not duplicative. I want to respect the independence of the different organizations and the different departments as we move through this. And I think that's important, but I do think that coming together in a group and coalescing a strategy together is important. And this is a good group to do it in. I'm not sure if it's the only one or the prime one, but I think this is a great group. And I think that it's a conversation I'd love to have with some of these stakeholders in front of the BOCC as well. And I'm looking forward to hearing what others say today.
Yeah, Denise.
I want to echo what Greg just said. I agree with that. And I would add that there are some people who are missing here. That would be like folks who are doing a lot of work in the schools, Jumping Mouse, MCS counseling. Those 2 groups it would be beneficial to have them at the table too, representing this. And then Brian, who is representing Recovery Cafe, maybe even Dove House would need to send a representative too, unless Brian is still representing Dove House also. And then anybody else that we as a group could think of who might benefit the group, and by being in the group, the larger part of the county, so that we are not duplicating services, that we are saying, this is the money I have, this is who I'm working under, this is what I'm doing with it, here's how we can partner, et cetera, and so on. So I think this would be as good a group as any if we add some of the other players who aren't present.
Anybody else? Vicki?
Yeah, I would remind those of us who are around at the very beginning of CHIP that one of the things that we have in our first CHIP is a goal around collective impact. in the importance of collective impact. And I think what everyone has talked about in terms of coming together and sitting together around a table and identifying what we are doing will help us also identify the gaps. And if we align our, if we can align our goals and, identify some ways to evaluate by identifying common metrics that we all gather data for, that we have the opportunity to really achieve collective impact. And to me, that's sort of the opposite of a siloed approach, where we each do our own job without really talking to each other. So I think that this is very much in keeping with the original thoughts of what the Community Health Improvement Plan was intended to provide, the opportunity for that collective impact.
Thanks, Vicki. Lori, why don't we look at the next slide?
Is this showing?
Yep, it is. Thanks. So it sounds like there's consensus. I mean, I think there's a few different ideas about what this might look like, but I think there's general consensus that this is at least a good group to have a major stake in kind of the community-wide planning for behavioral health. And I think what we would like you to start thinking about is, what does that actually look like? How can we create kind of an end-to-end system that is as coordinated as possible with all of the different players that we have in the community? And I think what Lori and I tried to do in developing the strategic plan for the HRSA grant that we applied for was to hit on as many of those things as possible. But I think one of the things that both of us feel strongly about is this is really a good time to kind of take that apart and really make sure that what we're doing is at least the start of what a community-wide behavioral health plan, strategic plan might look like. So we wanted to, at a really high level, show you what is currently in our strategic plan. And then I think we won't have time today to really delve into that, but Lori, why don't we show them that, the next slide kind of shows some of the major activities that we're talking about. And then, ultimately what we'd like you to do is review our current strategic plan. And as Vicki said, what are the gaps in that plan? How do we get all of these different groups, the providers, the hospital, the clinics, all the different people that are providing behavioral health care in our community, get everyone kind of aligned. Next slide, Lori. So does the plan that we have now, is it the right roadmap? And then, sorry, one more. And then these are the major activities that are in that plan. So I think our thought is that this is a start, but we think there's more strategic planning to be done. And I guess in the few minutes that we have left to discuss this, I'm interested to know if you guys have thoughts about how we might do that, whether we take the current strategic plan as a takeoff point and talk about that in a more serious and thoughtful way. Do we do a half-day planning retreat where we get as many members as possible together and do that? Do we continue to do this in 1 hour chunks? What are your thoughts about what might be the best way for us to start to put together the elements of a plan that would improve the behavioral health in our
So this is Jim again, and and I think of a strategic plan. It's a living, breathing document that changes over time. It's not static. And the idea of getting together and having a little retreat and really hammering out, is the plan we have in place, does it fit what we need now? What will it fit for the future? And really coming together and developing a plan that everybody can kind of feel part of and say that these are the goals we're going to move forward. And these hour meetings here and there just kind of get so fragmented. We can just do a time where you can sit down and really knock this out and start building something. I think would be more efficient, I guess, would be my point. So I would vote for something like that. Absolutely.
Other thoughts?
John, one of my thoughts, this is Vicky, is if we do a retreat, some of us are board members and others are staff. And I think it might be helpful if the membership organizations included perhaps their board chair along with the staff that has been coming and representing them at these meetings. Because whatever strategic plan and strategic action and movement to align them, the organizational boards are going to have to support that.
Yeah.
And I think it might be helpful if at least one, if not a couple, are engaged in the development of that plan.
Yeah, I agree, Vicky. I think that's important to get buy-in at that level, kind of right from the start. All right, one last chance for comment, and then I'll kind of do a little wrap up on this part, and then Laurie's going to run through just a little bit more about what's been going on with the grant and our CHIP work. Any other comments? Okay, so I think I'm hearing consensus that this would be a good group to start to try to do this work. Didn't really hear consensus, but heard at least a couple of opinions that putting together a longer kind of retreat type event to do some more complete planning would be a good next step. And Lori and I will probably strategize between now and the next meeting about what that might look like, and then come back to you with some kind of a plan for how we might do that at the next. We wouldn't be doing that at the next meeting, but presenting the plan to you at the next meeting about how we might do that. And then you guys could comment on that plan and make additions or changes to it as you see fit. Does that seem okay to folks? Kind of a thumbs up or some kind of, yeah, I think we're kind of on the right track. All right, I think the people I'm seeing are generally giving a thumbs up, so that's what we'll do. We'll come back next meeting with a plan about how we might do some more extensive strategic planning. And Lori, with that, I'm going to turn back to you.
Okay, thank you, John. So quickly, I know we've got just a few minutes here left at the end of this meeting. I'm going to run through, give you a quick update of those 9 projects that you saw. And then if anybody has or wants to talk more deeply about any one of those projects, I welcome a call or an email. We can set up a conversation and go into detail. On the provider prescriber front, we've got Ford and Jim who are, maybe I'm going to ask if they want to come back in March and give us a little overview of how it's working, what's working. On the data collection, we had one meeting back last month, and I want everybody to remember that the data for our quarterly report is going to be due on March 15th. I'll reach back out to you for it. In the next few weeks, Lisa and John and I are getting together to sort of plan that next data subgroup meeting and how we'll be marching the ball down the court in that meeting. On the print and online resource directory, John, did you want to say anything more about that?
Just really quick, I've distributed to several of you, but not all of you. So still getting those out. And just in the couple of weeks that those have been available, people have gone through even stacks of 200 and have asked me for more a couple of times. So I think it's really getting out there in the community and really being successful. If I haven't been to you yet, you're on my list, and hopefully I'll be around to you soon to distribute those.
Thank you.
I have a comment on that. I just want to let you know I was at a fire chiefs meeting a while back, and John Nowak is the big hero for bringing these things out. So good job.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff Noel. On the jail to community transitions, maybe as we go into that strategic planning, we can talk about, for instance, the RSAT grant and how that integrates with the county-wide system that we're talking about. On the peer network development, the focus of the folks that Recovery Cafe has hired has been more focused on the fairground wraparound. So later in the spring, we'll start looking at peer network development in more depth. Reduction effort down in South County. We have another meeting next Tuesday. We think that we're starting to get a line on a naloxone supply, which would be the first activity we'd undertake in that area, is some naloxone education. So that's moving along at a good pace. The communication action plan, there's sort of the caveat of the OCH and the funding that they've gotten to reduce stigma in the region, and us seeing how we can integrate to them. So in March, we'll probably start talking with OCH about what they've got going there, and that will help us define more of what we're going to do here in this county. And then on the navigator care coordination front, there's been a new navigator that was brought in with some CARES funding, the family navigator, Tanya Barnett. And in fact, she's going to be in the youth group that's meeting with CHIP. So there's some navigator sort of action happening in different parts of the work and tables that John and I touched, which I think will inform this project as we really start it going. Also, our technical assistance folks at HRSA are working with us to pull together a group that can help us brainstorm the HIPAA and CFR 42 Part 2 obstacles that sometimes we encounter and how we might get through them in this county. That is just, this slide just sort of outlines the specifics of what we were asking for from our HRSA folks. So if you had something more that you wanted us to ask in that question, we'd be happy to forward it on to them. On the friendly faces and collective case management that we would like this, all of the players here who touch one client to do at some point by the time we're done with this grant. A lot of the work that we're doing back on the navigator and the HIPAA questions will inform what we're able to do here on the friendly faces front. So that'll be down the road, but I think we're laying the groundwork for what will come next on that project. And then on the social determinants of health, and then specifically looking at poverty and housing, I think some of that work may get folded into the working age groups strategic framework, which will make its way into the CHIP plan. So that work is kind of a continuum of what we're talking about here. So that's why I bring that up at this moment. And then on behavioral health related funding efforts, one of the things that we're well aware of is that there's a good bit of money that's happening, you know, funding streams that are coming from different areas. And what John and I are trying to do is crosswalk the various funding streams with the various efforts that we have on and the agencies that we have involved, so that we can get a better idea of where we might have shallow spots and think about how to fill those with better funding. On the regional landscape, the items of note, some of you might have seen some of the articles that are in, for instance, the Peninsula Daily News, where they're talking about the bills that are being introduced and some of the specifics that are coming up as people talk about the pros and cons of those. Our own folks, Case Kolf, who's on the board on the hospital board, and Kate Dean from the Board of County Commissioners, both were talking with our own representatives. And I know that they're very involved in whatever the outcome is. I know that they will have had a strong voice in what happens next. Then on the implications of the Olympic Communities of Health and the new role that they're proposing for themselves, and what will that mean for Jefferson County is just something that I want to keep having on this group's sort of radar. There is a link here on this slide that you can click to that is a video where Celeste, who heads OCH, talks about what that new role could look like. And so it's something that we'll talk about in depth more. I'm kind of waiting. I keep watching the OCH boards of health and all of their meetings to see where that's going to get discussed in a more open forum. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. Again, you guys have already heard about this funding for the stigma. And then as a final reminder, we're going to be coming back to you for data, those of you who provide us with data. If I haven't said enough, I'll send you an email at the end of this meeting so that you'll really remember it. And then this is just a list of the upcoming meetings. You'll notice that there's one meeting in here that isn't in your packet, and that's the BHAC meeting that happens on March 2nd. So this is just a list of the meetings that I'm aware of that I'm attending or a part of between now and the next BHC meeting. And our next call is on Thursday, March 11th at 3 p.m. Do I have any questions as people just took in that blitz of information? And if not, any other final comments before we let you all get back to your day?
Thanks for the update. That is awesome. You guys are doing amazing work.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks, Lori and John and everyone else. I do want to just say that I really like the start of these meetings where we're invited to kind of give updates. I think that's a really helpful feature of having us all in the same room. So I'd like that to continue.
Thank you. All right, then. Everybody go forth and have a great rest of the week.
So just a reminder, some of you are in the working age band, which comes up right after this. So I'll be seeing some of you in a few minutes. And thanks for everything, you guys.
Thank you.
See everyone.